Thank you for coming. Let's start with today's numbers. Today I'm sorry to announce that there have been 1,435 new cases of depression. Of those, sadly 576 were businesses that had to close because of this insidious disease. We now have a close-up photo of the disease, and we ask every Victorian to do the right thing and stay at least 1.5 kilometres away from it, just in case you become infected. Back to the numbers. There were sadly no recoveries from this disease that we can report today. It appears that, according to the modelling, this most virulent strain, the Delta Dan strain of politics, has a 100% death rate. We also must report that this is the real reason our hospitals are becoming overrun. Seriously overrun, because of all those selfish people who made the choice not to keep their distance from this thing that moves with lightning speed to decimate our community. To date, there have been 6,358,296 people in total across the state who have succumbed to this BS. We have a long way to go if we're going to get ahead of this thing. It's going to take all of us, a concerted effort to defeat this wicked disease. I can't do it alone. I can't stand here and make promises that in 1 month or 2 months or 12 months, this crisis will be all over. I wish I could. We all wish I could. Nobody wants to be here in this sick and sorry state. You can't visit your mother. I can't visit my mother. We're all in this together. And it's only by people sticking to the rules that we're going to get out of this thing. The rule of law, that is. Not those other wishy-washy rules with no real legal base to them, but the real laws based on the Constitution. If we stick to that, every one of us, then we will get out of this pandemic. But if there are people out there who think, this doesn't apply to me, well, think again. Now, I'm not going to judge anybody for making bad choices at the last state election, but I will say this. If you think you can get away with your responsibilities at the next election, you're kidding yourself. And not just then, but every choice we make between now and then to do the right thing. However, despite the bad news, this is a very good day because I have a very exciting announcement to make. On the 2nd of November, most of us will be out of lockdown in this great state of Victoria. The Chief Health Officer, my great friend and colleague, has seen fit to allow crowds of silvertails at the Melbourne Cup. But I won't get in, you won't get in, hardly any of us will get in. So instead of missing out on this great event, we're going to stage our own hospital bed derby right here in Ballarat. The people of the government of this great state of Victoria are calling for an additional 4,000 beds for the ailing people of Victoria. We will do, with people power and goodwill, what those jokers in Spring Street, blah, 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 couldn't do with $1.3 billion. Now, We're not going to put those beds in some crummy exhibition building in central Melbourne. No, we're going to put them all the way up the main street of Ballarat. Ballarat, the home of democracy in Australia. For as far as the eye can see from the bottom of Sturt Street to the top, we will line it side by side with the 4,000 beds that were promised way back in April last year by that great phony and communist hypocrite, but were never delivered. This will be a first in Australia and possibly the world. But I know the great people of this great state of Victoria will respond. We've all got a spare bed floating around in our homes. I've got one, you've got one, we've all got one. Now is not the time to be dividing ourselves over a mere horse race. Now is the time for all of us to be coming together in a united effort to defeat this wild and wicked disease once and for all. So I'm calling on all Victorians. Hitch up your trailer, borrow your neighbour's trailer, hire a truck if you have to, but roll up your sleeves and make your contribution to saving this great state from this terrible, deadly disease. We can do it. I know we can do it. Lastly, I want to pay tribute to the hard work of all those tradies who've been shafted by their employers, even their union in some cases, and the devil of Danistan. We rely on you for just about everything, whether it's the drivers who keep our supermarkets supplied with food, or the plumbers who keep the water flowing, to the sparkies who day and night risk glowing in the dark just to keep our lights on, to the chippies who carry enough splinters to build Noah's Ark. We thank you, one and all, for all your sweat, determination, even though many of you no longer have a job because of this despicable, discriminatory situation we find ourselves in. And I also cannot forget to mention the nurses who have done an exceptional job looking after the ill and dying over the last 18 months, under great stress brought on by an ailing health system that was already ailing, already on its knees, long before 2020 even began. Because a communist was in charge of health and the entire government for 11 out of the last 15 years. You see, this is something that lots of people don't quite understand. There was a deal that was struck between the states and the federal governments years ago that each would supply 50% of the costs of healthcare in each state. 50-50. But go and check the figures for yourself. Victoria now only coughs up something like 40%, while the feds put in almost 60%. That is the uncomfortable truth about why we are where we are today. Stingy scumbags who just don't want to pay their share.